You do have a say now. You're not that helpless child anymore. Hey guys, welcome back. It's Missy. Today we're going to be talking about something that a lot of people don't even realize that they have a problem with, and that's fake guilt. Before we go into fake guilt, let's talk about what guilt is in general. So guilt is when you feel shame, anxiety, frustration, or you're upset about something that you feel you did wrong. When we are a child, we have a clean slate. Right from wrong is very objective, and we are taught right and wrong from our parents and from society. So if you do something that you feel is wrong, that's where guilt comes into play. It's basically your conscience being like, hey man, like we know different. Like this is something that we are not used to doing and we don't like it. And so we're gonna feel bad about it so that way we don't do it again, and also we can make up for it. A little guilt is not only normal, but it's also healthy. If brought up in healthy homes, it could be useful in forming healthy morals. For instance, robbing people, generally bad. Well, except in some weird unhealthy homes, robbing is considered like good, but whatever. We're gonna talk about the healthy, what most society feels. So robbing people is bad. As a kid, I'm sure either you, your siblings, or someone you knew, they took something to the store and they put it in their little carriage, and then you and the parents walked out with it. That is a teaching moment when the parents like, hey, listen, we don't steal, that's bad. And then that is now in your moral compass, like that's bad. Now you know for the next time, if you were to steal, you would feel that guilt feeling like, oh, this is morally wrong. That's healthy. Now in unhealthy homes, that's not the case. Guilt is used as a weapon and a tool. It is used to manipulate and control you and to deprive you. This is to strip away you as a human and your basic needs, and to make you feel like you don't have a say, you don't matter, and you are an extension of your narcissistic or abusive parent. It's a lot easier to manipulate someone that's a guilt-ridden person and strip away their own sense of self and their own ideas than it is someone who has a strong sense of self and who has healthy morals. So this means making you feel guilty about things like food, having basic needs, having wants, having your own identity, having boundaries, saying no. You'll feel guilty for all of those things. So if you are a guilty-ridden person and you always constantly feel this fake guilt, you are used to being trapped in deprivation. So when your needs are not met, especially as a child, you get used to it. So then you will build a tolerance and you will look for people that will deprive you of your basic needs as well. So basically you will surround yourself around people that will keep you in that guilt feeling, that will make you feel guilty and will also take advantage. Now as an older person, you get stuck in this feeling of guilt and constantly feeling like you're doing something wrong. Not only do you not know how to get out of it, but it also can be the thing that leads your decisions. So you will make decisions based on your guilt and trying to avoid that feeling. So how do you know if you're someone that struggles with fake guilt? I'm sure you already can tell you're someone that suffers with fake guilt because you probably feel guilty all the time. Let's go through some of the signs that can show that you may be struggling with fake guilt. So you may avoid doing things for yourself, even if you are a selfless person that does things for others. This is because you were taught if you do things for yourself or if you're selfish, it's wrong and you're terrible. And so you feel guilt if you take care of yourself. You will feel that you are undeserving of things. So you will not act on things that you want, or you won't take action forward to have the things you want. It is also hard for you to get close to people as you feel you're unworthy. And you will sabotage because, again, you don't feel you're worthy and it's unfamiliar territory, and we as humans, we don't like unfamiliarity. Another thing is you may be defensive and you will explode with defensiveness when you're accused of something. And mainly that's probably because you feel this constant shame and negative thoughts and view towards yourself. When you hear someone else saying things to you, you become very defensive because you're so used to it being the voice in your head. You also are used to defending yourself from being accused of constantly doing something wrong, so then the guilt and the shame get piled on. This can also cause you to have a hard time solving things, as you will avoid the conflict and the negative emotions that come with it, because you feel such guilt and shame and negative emotions. You may fear judgment, and you may always think that people are judging you when they're not, and you will self-sabotage. You will cause anything that could potentially good happen, you will sabotage it. So that means relationships or maybe job opportunities or good things that could happen in your life. So how do you stop feeling this fake guilt all the time? If you grew up in a narcissistic home, it's very common for you to be confused about what right and wrong is. So the first thing I would say is determine your own morals. What do you feel is right? What do you feel is wrong? What is the type of person that you want to be? Who is a good example to you? Like I said, right and wrong is objective. So everyone has a different definition of what is right and wrong, except for the law. Like, don't kill people and don't steal. Like, but other than that, decide your own thing. Like, for instance, your parent most likely have taught you that it's not right to speak up and have a voice. You can determine that's something that's right and that's something that you feel like is important to do. This is important to reprogram that part of you, because that part of you has been programmed to believe that things are wrong that are not wrong. After you have determined what you feel is right and wrong, now you need to do self-check-ins where you check in with yourself when someone asks something of you or when something compromises you. Ask yourself, how do I feel about this? Will this hurt me? If it does, then you don't do that thing and you say no. Easier said than done. This will be really hard for my people pleasers, but give yourself permission to say no. That is part of retraining your brain, reprogramming to put yourself first and to be able to say no and have boundaries. You're trying to normalize having boundaries. And don't get me wrong, it's okay for you to do things for people too. You want to have that balance. But always check in with yourself first to make sure that you are not being compromised. The next thing is, when you are feeling guilty, it's important to examine that guilt feeling. So what triggered it? Why do you feel this way? Are you feeling this way because someone asked something of you and you said no? Are you feeling this way because you ate something? Are you feeling this way because you bought something for yourself? Are you feeling this way because you got to have a good time, maybe your friend didn't? Ask yourself, what function does feeling guilty serve and what does it do for you? So examine it. Is someone else telling you you did something wrong, or do you feel like you did something wrong? It is really important to recognize this feeling before you act on it, because most people that suffer with fake guilt, they act on it immediately because they want to get rid of that feeling. They don't want to feel it. So you will notice yourself doing things that are not healthy for yourself. So examine this feeling, especially before you act on it. The next thing is fight the urge to give into the feeling. So after you've determined that feeling is false guilt, now you need to do things differently from what you've done in the past. You need to make sure you don't act on it. So something you may have done is, if you felt guilty for having a good time and maybe your friend wasn't there, you would make sure to not have a good time, or you would leave the situation early. Or maybe in the past, if you knew something good was going to happen, you would sabotage the situation because you didn't feel worthy and you didn't feel like you deserved it. And you would give into that guilt feeling. And also understand the consequences of what happened when you give into that guilt feeling. You lose control over yourself, and you lose any control that you have. You teach people to treat you very unfairly. You build resentment in yourself towards others. You go around having this negative view of yourself and this negative belief towards yourself, and you feel just generally awful. And you get stuck in this negative feedback loop of feeling unworthy, undeserving, and then not getting anything you want in your life. So now it's time to fight the urge to give into that feeling. So it's time to break the cycle. So just remember that guilt is just a feeling. When you stop giving into your guilt feeling, it will unstrengthen the feeling and the intensity of the feeling, and it'll be reprogramming your brain so that the next time it's not as intense as it was the time before or the time before that, as you are now learning what you feel is correct and not correct. This is especially important in your relationships or when you're giving yourself your basic needs and wants. You need to set boundaries. You need to determine how you want to be treated in your relationships and what you want to change, because you are in control of that. The next thing is validate and set time for negative emotions. So like I said earlier, When you feel guilty, you try to avoid that feeling or you give into it so you don't have to feel it anymore. So what that means is you ignore your genuine feelings and needs and you act on that guilt. So you will apologize even if you're not wrong. You will do things you genuinely don't want to do. You'll put yourself in bad situations. So rather than avoiding the guilt or punishing yourself, push yourself through those feelings. Allow them to be what they are. Uncomfortable feelings. So when we have these uncomfortable feelings, we will try to avoid them and we will not acknowledge ourselves. It is important to validate how you are feeling. You are allowed to have that feeling. Once you learn how to work through these feelings, you will, like I said, have them less and less. And you will know how to work through them, whereas in the past you didn't know how to work through them. You would just give in to the guilt and you feel like you don't matter, or you are helpless and you don't have a say. This is why it's important to validate your feelings, because your feelings are valid. And it's important you give yourself that time to allow yourself to work through that feeling, because if you don't, like I said, you will get stuck in that cycle. So when you do say no to that person, say, okay, I'm just having a feeling, I'm not actually doing something wrong, and it's okay for me to do this. And it's important to allow yourself to feel it. Be like, okay, listen, I'm gonna take this 15 minutes, feel this negative feeling, allow myself to feel this feeling, and then I'm gonna pick myself back up. Which goes to the next point, self-compassion. Self-compassion is the ability to be kind, nurturing, and understanding towards yourself, and knowing that it's okay to be nice to yourself. It's hard to have self-compassion when you don't feel like you've had much compassion in your life. So you get used to beating yourself up because that's what you heard growing up. That's now the voice in your head. But beating yourself up when you're feeling down does not help. Know that you're not doing anything wrong by taking care of yourself, by having needs, by having fun, by enjoying yourself. That is the mess up programming you learned as a child. Most people don't feel guilty for taking care of themselves. That's why selfish people exist. Selfishness is not inherently bad. It's only bad when it's done too much. But it's okay to take care of yourself and to think about yourself. Those are the things that you want to tell yourself. Remind yourself that you cherish yourself and that you deserve good things and you're worthy of having basic needs and you are worthy of good people in your life. That's what self-compassion is. Another thing that could be really helpful is take yourself out of the situation and think about what advice would you give a friend if they were in the same situation. Would you tell them to give in to their guilt feeling or like they were wrong for having basic needs or for enjoying things? No, absolutely not. So why would you do that to yourself? It's time to treat yourself the same way you would treat a friend. What you deserve, a caring, compassionate, empathetic person towards yourself, being your own best friend. Be proud of yourself. These are the times to use that reparenting language and having those positive affirmations to counteract those negative things you tell yourself. So when you are feeling guilty, take a deep breath, go through the emotions, tell yourself it's just an uncomfortable feeling, then you pick yourself back up and you have compassion for yourself and you tell yourself you're allowed. You're allowed to have boundaries, you're allowed to have needs, you're allowed to care for yourself. And the last thing is accept the situation as it is. Most normal, healthy people, when you tell them no, they'll move on with their life. They're like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go do something else. But unhealthy people, which you may still have in your life, you may still have to deal with, they will make you feel terrible. And that's the thing is, you need to accept that they're unhealthy and they're going to do those things and it's not your responsibility to take it on. Their feelings are not your responsibility. You will let people feel down and that's okay. You don't have bad intentions, just we can't help everyone. If someone wants to go out to sushi with you and the other person wants you to go out for hamburgers, you can't please them both. And no, you can't go to sushi and then hamburgers right after. Because you're a people pleasing butt will try to do that. You can only please one person and that's yourself. Can you still be a caring individual that wants to do things for others? Yeah, absolutely. But healthily, with healthy boundaries. So understand that not everyone's going to accept your no, even though most people will, but those unhealthy people, and it's okay. Accept that it is what it is and it's okay. And you're not inherently doing anything wrong, even though these people will try to make you feel like you are. You're not. Because you're sick and tired of guilt controlling your life. I know you are. And just understand, your job isn't to be perfect. Are there gonna be times when you mess up? Yes, absolutely. Are you gonna give into your guilt sometimes? Are you gonna maybe make a decision that wasn't the best and you're wrong? Yes, absolutely. And that's okay. It's just a matter of learning how to deal with it. In those situations, if you mess up, you just say, listen, I mess up. It's okay. I'm going to pick myself back up and I'm going to learn from this situation. Everything negative that happens is always a lesson. What can you learn from it? So fake guilt in your family was used as a tool to manipulate and control you, to feel like you couldn't have basic wants and needs, to not care for yourself. What you need to do is you need to determine your own right from wrong, your own morals, examine your feeling, don't give into that guilt feeling. Validate your own feelings and schedule time to have those negative emotions. Have self-compassion and accept the situation for what it is. People are not always going to be happy, and that's okay. There is nothing wrong with what you're doing. You are changing the reprogramming in your brain, which is what you need to do so you don't keep this cycle up and you don't pass it down to your children if you have any. Which, if you change the cycle, like, you're such a badass. Like, that's awesome to be the person that changes the abusive cycle in your family. And all it takes is just one person. And it starts with you. You having self-compassion for yourself. You not giving into the guilt feeling. You telling yourself things like you did the best you could with what you had. You not beating yourself up when you mess up. What do you guys think? Do you struggle with fake guilt? And how do you deal with it? Leave it all in the comments below. And please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And share with someone you think may need it. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye, guys. This is a good time for me to confess, but I, too, was a person that I stole a teddy bear. My mom brought it back, but still, I thought I should get that off my chest. And so if there's a warrant out for my arrest, it's probably because I stole that teddy bear all the way back when I was like 5. Oh my God, there's a squirrel that is hanging by its tail, grabbing a leaf. Okay, girl, you get your leaf. I don't know squirrels are crazy. They're really crazy. If reincarnation exists, I'm gonna be a squirrel in the next life, and I'm gonna like jump from tree to tree. I'm gonna jump on cars. Probably not gonna live a very long life as a squirrel. Let's go into what regular guilt is. Before we go into fake guilt, let's talk about, why do I keep wanting to say regular guilt? Like, there's different brands of guilt. It feels like it's burning my house down. That the feeling is false guilt. Is that a turkey? Oh my God, I'm distracted so much today. Shh. Sash, siéntate.